All right, so I have 7:05. We do have a quorum. Because we're on Zoom, we'll be doing a roll call for attendance. Josette,
Here.
Ally,
Here.
Brian,
Here.
Steve,
Here.
Susan,
Here.
Jeff,
Here.
Kathleen,
I'm here.
Jean,
Here.
Doug. Oh, where'd Doug go? Okay, I see Doug waving. Mark Sullivan,
Here.
Lisa,
Here.
Larry.
Here.
Denny. No Denny, okay. Myself and Lucy is not here, correct? We have 13 in attendance and we'll get started. We're back into the budgets. Our first budget item is within the general government, DPW building maintenance. Anybody have questions on DPW building maintenance?
Yes.
Yes. Hold.
Yep, we're just jumping right to that one. So we'll start with Josette and then Brian, I believe.
All right. My question is what is the status of the Marathon House? Where's it going? Is it going to stay a vacant building? Do we know anything yet?
The Marathon House, you mean the old food pantry, right?
Correct.
Okay.
Can I ask what page we're on?
As far as sorry, Mark,
Yeah, in the details, it's under tab 4, page 23 is the big detail.
So Josette, to answer your questions, there are no plans for the Marathon House at this time. I've been told conflicting things by different people associated with the food pantry.
I have all.
So we're not changing anything on our end at this time. And if it were to be knocked down or refurbished or whatever, it would take the select board would need to be involved with it. So status quo for now.
So correct me if I'm wrong, the town still owns it. It's
Yes.
town property.
Yes.
All right. Thank you. I release my hold.
Okay. Brian, I think you chimed in.
Yes, I have a couple questions through you, Mark. Just on a few of the heating budgets, there seem to be some wide variances, and such as Boyden School dropping drastically, more in line with what it used to be, but still a large increase. Wondering why Bird is increasing, but Johnson staying the same. If we're anticipating heating costs rising, why are some of these staying the same?
So as far as the Boyden School is concerned, we've been in contact with the gas company for several years now. There seems to be an issue with the gas meter. They've replaced it, but it still, in my opinion, isn't reading properly. So in the past, we've always carried what we anticipate that building to use for heat, even though we don't expend it. I just wanted to be prepared in case the meter was repaired. This year, we decided to drop it down, still keeping it higher than what we've been spending to protect ourselves, but anticipating they're not going to replace the meter for us.
Okay, thank you, Don. Can you touch upon such as Birdman School increasing and Johnson staying the same?
So Bird, we've seen an increase in the usage. I think a lot of that has to do with the new staff that's in there, the custodial staff. They're not as in tune to operating the boilers as well as the previous head custodian was. So he's been using a little bit more gas than normal. So we wanted to make sure we were protected for that. The other buildings, we just tried to maintain the heating close to what has been used in the past.
Perfect, thank you. And I just have one more question here, Mark.
Yep.
If somebody can touch upon the equipment repairs to both fire stations in East Walpole and South Walpole and what is on the horizon for those?
So we put a little bit extra in for East Fire Station. It's a manned station at this time, so we do have to make sure that, we keep up with the, the daily maintenance on that as things happen. And then the South Fire Station is used for occupancy during stadium events. And there are a few issues that we've been picking up on down there that we are gonna, this summer, be planning on working on. So we just wanted to make sure we maintain some money in that budget.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. I release my hold.
Jim, getting back to the Marathon House, is it a building that currently cannot be used for some reason, or is just that the prior users of the building have moved on to something different?
From what I understand, they're still using it for storage.
Okay, all right. Okay, because I mentioned to you earlier, I mean, we've got buildings that maybe we should be looking at doing an analysis of surplus property and having the Board of Selectmen come forward with a proposal to possibly flip some properties back onto the real estate rolls. This potentially being one, the other would be the East Walpole Library. And I'm not sure what else we have on the books that we could look at as possibly flipping back to residential use and increasing our tax base. It's something to consider, but also it's a case of doing an inventory of what we would deem as surplus properties.
Okay.
There being any other questions on?
Yep, I have a few, Mark.
Okay, yep. Go ahead,
Um,
Ally.
Thank you, Mark. I noticed the library had a $10,000 in there. Could you explain a little bit about what repairs are needed to be done there?
On which, the new library?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, we've just been constantly having maintenance issues going through there with the mechanical equipment. So we just want to make sure that we maintain a budget in there to make sure we can maintain that. We've been working on a couple of roof leaks. There's just been issues with the building that we certainly want to make sure we maintain it.
Okay. And then Blackburn too, what's going on with Blackburn improvements that are being made?
So Blackburn, well, we've been making some capital improvements, but because of its use for activities with children and other activities, again, it's something that as things get moved around and broken, we have to maintain it and make sure everything operates.
All right, and then just two more. So Jarvis Pools, in this past, we've done some trial runs of opening that to the public, and I noticed some money being allocated to that. Could you explain that one a little bit or elaborate a little more?
Which one?
It said pools for Jarvis Farm, I think.
Oh, so we had maintenance now. We have to make sure that we've always maintained the pools. That's our responsibility. And then Jarvis Farm, now that they have summer camps and activities going on up there, we've maintained several of those sheds for them.
Just curious. And then the last one is DPW. With the new building, it had $40,000, I think, allocated for that facility.
Yep. So I've been trying to find that one. So again, it's maintenance. We just want to make sure that as things move around and settle, we just want to be prepared to do any maintenance on it.
All right, that's it. Thank you.
Any other questions on building maintenance? Ready? There being none, that is our last item under general government for approval. I'll entertain a motion for action on building maintenance.
Okay, so moved for the amount of $2,400,421.
Motion by Josette. Do I have a second?
Second,
That was Doug.
Doug.
Okay. All in favor, Josette,
Yes,
Ally,
Yes.
Brian,
Yes.
Steve,
Yes.
Susan,
Yes.
Jeff,
Yes.
Kathleen,
Yes.
Jean,
Yes.
Doug,
Yes.
Mark,
Yes.
Lisa,
Yes.
Larry,
Yes.
myself is a yes, and Lucy and Denny are still absent. Favorable action, 13-0-0.
Mark, I just have one question for Jim on this.
Sure.
Does any money get turned back, like in 2021, 2263? Did any of that, again, you prepare for these various things that could happen and maintenance and all. Does any of it end up not needing it and then coming back to, I guess, cash or free cash? Typically, I don't know, I'm just historically.
Oh, yeah, definitely. Each year around the fall, I always give you guys whatever major budgets have contributed money back. I think Dawn each year maybe gives somewhere between, Jody, correct me, maybe 70 to 200,000 back, depending on what type of year he has. Does that sound about right, Jody?
Yeah, usually, if I recall, under 100.
Yeah.
So
Thank
they
you.
are using their funds.
Great, thank you.
Alrighty, next we're gonna go to DPW, which is tab 7. We're gonna run through the budgets like we did for general government, putting holds on whatever sections you wish to have holds on, and then we'll go back into more detail. So first up is DPW engineering.
Hold.
Old,
Old.
Okay, there's plenty.
okay, give us a list.
Yeah. Who do we have?
Name
Brian,
and Brian,
Josette,
Jeff.
Larry,
Larry, okay,
anyone else?
Ally,
Jeff.
Ally.
Jeff and Ally, okay.
And Doug.
Okay, we'll cover everybody. Don't worry.
Ally, Doug.
DPW administration,
Hold. Doug.
Doug. Okay. DPW highway,
Hold. Doug.
okay. Snow and ice. Okay.
I just
Traf-
have a question on that, not, when we get to it.
Okay. Traffic control,
Hold. Doug.
Hold, Larry.
there, okay.
Doug,
Solid waste and recycling. We're gonna-
hold, I know we covered it. I just had one more question on that one.
That was Ally, okay.
Yes,
DPW landfill. Good, that's a 0 budget.
Alex,
Cemetery,
should I have Melissa hop on for that, or is it an easy question?
No, it's pretty basic. I mean,
Okay.
and if she's not available, that's fine too. Like if
Okay.
you don't have the answer, it's
DPW cemetery,
Hold, Mark Sullivan.
Mark, okay. Vehicle maintenance. No. Okay, that covers DPW. So once again, these are all under tab 7. And we'll go back to the top and get started with the holds, which had almost everybody.
Maybe it's the same question.
Hopefully. Let's see here. Okay, so we're gonna start with Brian.
Mine's gonna be easy. It's just a quick comment. I think Kyle, through you, Mark, to Kyle. You prepared the budget probably. I just really appreciate how you broke out the dues and memberships for us so that we could actually see what is entailed in the ask. So thank you for that. That's all really my hold.
More than glad to.
Okay. Josette,
under the professional, $84,007, is that, it's kind of confusing here. Is that a new person that's been hired, going to be hired, or additional funds for the assistant town engineer?
So I can take that and Rick can
Go ahead.
follow up if necessary. So with that, last year, you might recall that we budgeted for a new position at, I think, mid-50s, low 60s. We've been advertising that. We haven't found anyone to fill that position. It was more or less, I think we called it a permit review clerk or something along those lines. We were hoping to get someone in there. So what Rick and Carl work to do is more or less take the part-time position and that $50,000 or $60,000 position there and merge them into a second assistant for Carl to serve as the town engineer. So that's what we're doing there. Not adding a new position, upgrading it so we could attract people who are qualified.
So at this point, we're interviewing. You don't have a
Actually, I
person.
just signed the offer letter for the new person coming in the door.
Awesome. I release my hold.
Larry?
Thank you. I think that explained, in other words, that's the difference between the professional and the part-time line items. That you're taking it out of the part-time position and making it a full-time and upgrading that position.
Yes.
Okay, got it. The stipend, I had a question on 4,500 GIS. Is that, I can't understand. Can you just give me some color on that?
This budget only goes back to 2019, but you can still see it's there. That's been in place probably for 7 or 8 years, maybe even 10. Years ago, we phased out the GIS professional system, and one of the assistants actually took on those duties. So it saves us a considerable amount of money. Carl, Rick, anything to add on that one?
That's correct, Jim. It's with the DPW administrative assistant that runs the GIS system for the entire public works and town departments. And that's the stipend that's paid annually.
And GIS stands for, I'm just trying to understand, it's a software system, it sounds like.
Geographical information systems.
And what does that do for the town? Do we have to keep maintaining it? It's a
Yes.
roadmap.
Anything from an aquifer map to a zoning map to any map that you see basically comes from GIS.
Thank you. I'm all set.
Okay. Ally?
I just had a question about the professional line, and that seemed to have been answered, so I released my hold.
Okay. Jeff?
Yeah, so back on the GIS, on page, I don't even know what page it is. There's also $19,600 for professional and technical support. And I believe in the assessor's budget, there's also a maintenance and support line item as well. Right, who's licensing the software and who's supporting it? Right, that's for contractual outside services, Jeff, through the use of Camp Russ and McKee, who is, I believe, Carl Wright. We're using CDM for that.
Yeah, CDM Smith nowadays, Rick. Yep.
Yeah, so Carl brings them in on a frequent basis to upgrade our machines. And Carl, you can probably give more information exactly what Cindy does for you when she comes in.
Sure, Rick. And through the chair, the outside is CDM Smith, and it's actually been the same person for about 20 years or so, or somewhere in that vicinity. And part of that allocation is for updating the assessors maps, and she does work with the assessors to split off new lots and do those things. And that also involves some database information that's got to be coordinated with the assessors. And the remainder, or approximately 10 more thousand of that is part of on-call services. So if the other departments need help with things, and you never know what that's going to be. For instance, this year we've been supporting the re-precincting with our GIS. That the maps for re-precincting and various things, responses we've had to prepare on that are all coming out of that line item on an on-call basis. So they're doing the outside things. They'll also have to do some update on various maps that we have, and that's why that line item is in there. And it's a moving target. It's variable.
So what's the difference between what Dennehy's supporting and CDM is? I know CDM's doing your map upgrades and all that, but so part of it we're insourcing, part of it we're outsourcing. Just tell me I understand what the difference is.
That's correct. So some things that we do, maps that we prepare and things like that are done on the in-house GIS. When it's a larger capability like the townwide maps, utility updates and things like that, that's being done under the outsourcing.
Okay. I know was in the assessor's budget, but Jim, do you know why we're doing it? We have a separate support and maintenance line item for the assessors?
I believe it's a totally different component. If you want, I can get Dennis in here at a later date I'd say the chairman. But I won't do
I'll
that.
talk to the chairman. I'll send him the same software. I wouldn't expect to see it in multiple department budgets. Cool. One other question I had back on professional services, towns similar to our size, do we know what they normally have for staffing, engineers, assistant engineers, secretarial staff?
I think Carl could probably best address that since he's worked in a few other communities and engineering departments. I know we're on the smaller side, but Carl, do you mind?
Yeah, no, I don't mind at all, Jim. When I've actually done two employment stints with Walpole, and when I was here the first time, we had 4 in the department, and there's 2 now, 2 full-time now. The town that I worked for previously had a total of 5. So I don't think we're overstaffed. There's 2 of us keep our feet around the ground running pretty much all the time. So I really like to see the help come in because there's a lot going on. This town's bigger. It's bigger than it was when I was here the first time. It was bigger than it was when I grew up here. So there's a lot more going on. There's an exceptional amount of permitting going through, an awful lot of review. And as you can see from other things, there's also quite an interest in capital spending. That all takes staff and effort. Even when you're vending out services, it takes people to coordinate it on the inside.
All right, release my hold. Thank you.
Doug.
My budget questions were answered, but I've got an off-topic question. I see the assistant town engineer at Elm Street doing traffic counts and whatnot. And I just wasn't sure if there was a status on what's going on with Elm Street. I know we put money out there in the budget for last year. Just curious what was going on with that traffic study.
Glad you're sitting down, Doug. We got the preliminary report today about what we should do about traffic and signalization there. So we've been working through that. The rough estimates today came in at $2 million, close to it. We got to really dig into that a little bit and see, what can be weeded out there. So it's moving forward. Certainly, we're looking at probably, I think they told us maybe about 300,000 in design and engineering and site spec prep. Is that right, Rick and Carl and Pat? Okay.
Yeah, that's about right.
So that we're moving forward with it, Doug.
Thank you. Release the hold.
Any other questions on DPW engineering? Yes, Larry.
Larry, just a general question, not so much DPW, but I see stipends all through the budget and I forget. When an employee retires, do the stipends get calculated into his or her pensions calculation?
That was one I actually, from my particular contract, Larry, I followed up with the county and I'm waiting for a response on that one.
Fair enough. Thank
Once
you.
I get it, I'll give you an answer.
Okay.
Thanks.
Any others? Okay. Moving on to administration. Doug.
I had a question about the dues and memberships and meeting and conferences. It just seemed like a lot of the, or at least some of the dues and memberships, meetings and conferences were duplicate to those that were attended by the engineer's office. And I wasn't sure if they're, because it's part of the same department, if these were just duplicate memberships or duplicate conferences, or if there was a way to save money by, I'm not sure if we need to have these in both groups with their respective line items, if there's a way to consolidate and save money, or if those are needed for both engineering and the administration.
They are needed for separate departments. They cover separate employees.
Thank you.
Mark, I have a quick question
Sure.
before the next person comes. Are you doing these item by item or just the grand total?
We're going to do the grand total for DPW.
Okay, thank you.
Unless there's still an objection, in which case we'll hold that one out and do the rest. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Any other questions on administration?
I have a question, Larry.
Sure.
Two things. Equipment maintenance at 0. And is that, in other words, covered in all the other? I would think there's some maintenance going on, equipment. Is that just, it's all covered in all the other maintenance type equipment budgets?
There isn't a lot of equipment to maintain, Larry, in the DPW administration. The only thing we have is like a printer and a stamp machine. So there were really no costs associated with that.
Okay, no. And one other question on the professional, the stormwater. I think it's the same person, the administrative assistant person doing this for the 20 plus the regular position, and then the stipend, I think the GIS stipend. Is that all correct? That person is all one and the same?
The 20,000 that's in professional services is for the use of an outside consultant.
Oh, okay, it's not.
Justin O'Neill is actually the
Thank you.
consultant.
Okay. Moving on to highways, Doug.
Sorry, let's see. I think my question had to do with the 2.5% increase in salaries and emergency overtime. I was just curious if we know where the FY22 expenses were at for that item. It just seemed like a lot of money compared to previous years. And I just wasn't sure if it was all, it looks like we spent 18 and 20, we spent 16 and 21, 30 is budgeted for 20, but it seems like it's almost double what we've spent in the past, not compared to FY19. So I just wasn't sure if we knew where we were with that specific overtime budget for 22.
Jody, can you check that real quick? As to where we're at with percentage right now for the highway budget, overtime budget?
Yeah, I can't get into the system right now, but I will and answer for you.
Okay, thank you.
Welcome.
All set to move on, Doug, or do you have? other
Yes,
stuff?
yes, that's it. Thank you.
Doug, I might be able to, I have the paper copy here, so give me a minute or two, go on to the next one. I'll give you,
Okay.
Okay.
as of 12:30, I'll be able to, I have it, so.
We weren't touching snow and ice, but just for background, we can't reduce snow and ice by, I think it's state laws, because if you reduce your budget, then you can't claim aid during a snow emergency. So you get barred from getting some reimbursement. So we always have to bump it up a little bit every year.
Interesting.
Yeah, I think there was a discussion we had a while back. It's like, how come we only raised it $100 this year? It says, well, we had to increase it something. And this year Jim's got it going up only $800. So, but obviously we don't have the results of the last storm, do we, yet to know where we stand on this year's snow and ice?
Oh, we are, Donna keeps updates. I usually ask for it the day after the storm.
Okay.
We're projecting we have about 300 or so thousand left in that account right now.
Yeah, we're at 37% spent, Mark.
Okay.
Right now we have a balance of roughly 307,000, I believe. And Jim usually asks while it's still snowing.
Alrighty.
So
I have-
just hopping back to Doug's question, I found it that this is a printout from beginning of December sometime. We in December we had spent about $8,000 in overtime. That obviously that was well before any winter operations or patching or anything. So that's where we're at in December.
Yeah, Doug, just to your question, we've been trying to send patch crews out, pothole crews out on Saturdays. We just don't have the staffing to keep up with it during the week, to be honest with you, with everything else that's going on. But we'll keep a close eye on that. And if we need to make an adjustment as we move forward next year, we will certainly do so.
Thank you.
Okay, traffic control, Doug.
Excuse me, I have a quick question
Sure.
on the snow.
Okay.
We did the slurry, the salt mixture, the liquid mixture. How did that work out? Are you satisfied with it?
We've not had the opportunity to use it yet, Josette, only because the equipment has not yet arrived. There's long
Okay.
build times on these pieces of equipment. Supply chain issues, vehicle issues, chip issues. So it's really slowed down the production of the truck.
Okay.
I know Drew has the tank on order. He's poured the concrete pad for the setting of the brine tank. That has yet to arrive as well. So we haven't had the opportunity to yet try it.
Okay, thank you.
Mark, I had a question as well.
Sure, go ahead, Jeff.
So I think back last summer, Rick, you had signs all over town looking for contract snowplow drivers. I think you have since raised the rates that we're paying. You were looking for 275. TA is saying, just shy of 230. Do you have the contracting workforce that you're expecting?
We've actually lost, how many, Drew, did we lose this year? 4 or 5?
We lost about 14 pieces of equipment.
Yeah, over 4 or 5 contractors.
So
We've
are you
lost some-
expecting to raise rates again? I just kind of
We did.
hearing, I think Somerville was, just looking at what some other towns have offered contract plow drivers.
We are looking at the rates, Jeff. And we're also looking at potentially some sign-on bonuses and things of that sort, some kind of incentives to attract these people. We lost some to Franklin, we lost some to Norwood. Their rates are a little higher, but it's a game. I mean, where does it end? I mean, just because we're paying $5 an hour more doesn't necessarily mean they're gonna stay here. These guys are dealing with increased fuel prices, insurances and things of that sort. Plus, a lot of them just don't want to maintain their equipment. It beats the equipment up pretty good when you get a good sized storm, and a lot of them are just actually getting out of the snowplow business.
So I guess my comment is I just don't see 229 being enough, giving that, that's my comment.
Okay. So DPW traffic, Doug.
Guess just a minor question on the electricity item for 295,000. The number's gone down by 35 grand, but the description for electricity talks about it maintaining level funding. And to me, it's not maintaining level funding, but it's been reduced by 35,000. So I just wasn't sure if I wasn't looking at something correctly or if that was a misstatement on the financial piece or on the description.
So Doug, on my end, Rick is correct. Rick enters in the description in Munis and I go in and I chop when I'm trying to balance his budget. So it's his description there. I can tell you that the reason I picked that number, Rick and I went back and forth a little bit. It's about 10% of the operating. I'm hoping it's going to be less. I think it will be less. I just don't know what it's going to be. Those lights are going to be in place probably just before the beginning of the fiscal year. So we'll have a full year, almost a full year going into it, 6 months plus a few more as next time we discuss this. But that was me who knocked that down to try to make everything balance.
Okay, thank you. Release the hold.
Okay, Larry.
I'm good. I answered the question. Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions on traffic? Okay, solid waste, Ally.
I just had a quick question about the tonnage, Jim. We reviewed what the recycling tonnage has gone down to. I think she said like $30. What is our waste? Do you have an idea of how much that is a ton currently?
I don't off the top of my head, but I'll get you the details on that, the waste.
Okay, that's it.
Okay. DPW cemeteries, Mark.
I'm just curious, what exactly involves that? I mean, it's 174,000, and I'm just wondering, what is the town's maintaining its own cemeteries?
Right, we maintain 6 cemeteries, Mark. 3 which are active, 3 of which are historical. This is a 2-man department for all intents and purposes. And this covers all the expenses to maintain those 6 cemeteries, as well as the equipment that they use and their salaries.
Okay. I'm just curious, on average, how many burials do they do a year? I don't mean to sound morbid. I'm just kind of curious, like how active they are.
Justin, can you help them out with that?
Oh, there we go. Yep, I can help you out with that. Typically, we're in the range of around 34 burials, about 20 of which this past year were full burials, and the other 10 were cremations. So we're fairly active.
And do people, when you do a burial, do they pay a fee, and does that help offset the cost to maintaining the cemeteries?
Yeah, so there's a fee for buying the plots, which is $900 total, $500 for the plot, $400 for perpetual care, which is a separate account that can be used for purchases inside the cemetery. And then for the actual burial fee, depending on whether it's a weekend or a weekday, the price will vary, and it'll also vary depending on whether it's a full burial or if it's a cremation. Cremations will cost less.
Mhm. Okay, fine, thank you.
Just on the fee thing, Mark, while we're on that, ironically, we are going to approach the select board to adjust some of those rates that are currently in effect. Because in Justin's research of other communities around us, we are on the very, very low side. So we're looking at increasing those.
Okay. Great, I'm all set, Mark, thank you.
Thank you. There were no other categories held for DPW. So I'll entertain a motion on DPW.
Affirmative action on the DPW for $5,789,965.
Okay.
Second.
Second by Susan. Okay. All in favor, Josette,
Yes,
Ally,
Yes,
Brian,
Yes,
Steve,
Yes.
Susan,
Yes.
Jeff,
Yes.
Kathleen,
Yes.
Jean,
Yes.
Doug,
Yes.
Mark,
Yes,
Lisa,
Yes.
Larry,
Yes.
and myself. Favorable action 13-0-0. That moves us on to public safety, starting with police department, which is tab 5 of our book. Questions for police department? I
Doug's
saw
got one.
Larry first, Josette second, and Doug third.
I have some also,
Okay,
Mark.
yep,
And myself as well, unless they get answered.
okay.
Yeah,
Thank
and you could
Doug.
add Ally to the list too. And
Okay.
hopefully some are answered.
5, Ally 6, okay.
But Mark, I'm writing this down as we go. Did I
Yeah.
have Larry, Doug, Ally, Mark? Who else am I missing?
Jeff,
Jeff. And I think Josette was in there too, right?
yes.
Yes, I had
Okay.
Josette second, yeah. Okay, so Larry, your first up?
Great. Question on the overtime for sergeants at patrol. It's been pretty consistent around 500,000. I think we've added some personnel. I thought I read in Jim's report, we've added staff to the police department. So will that, I would hope that maybe would lower that number, but maybe not. Any, can I have some color to that?
Yeah, so I guess it possibly could, but at this point where, officers still taking days off regularly and, we're filling these shifts and we're looking to actually increase our staffing as well, which would, cause us to fill those shifts at a more regular basis. So we're trying to just keep that number at a consistent rate. So when we get to that point, we can, fill those spots accordingly.
So this is more for vacation and sick time and stuff like that.
Vacation, sick time, right. Filling shifts
What's-
to maintain appropriate staffing, yes.
And what's the minimum staffing level these days? Like during the day and the night, I think is a little different.
It's at 3 officers right now. We're hoping to get to 4 as we increase our staffing, which we're working towards now.
Wow, 3 officers per shift, and a sergeant, lieutenant.
And a sergeant, yes, and then during the day, the administrative staff is here, lieutenants, and myself as well.
Great. One other question on the stipends. It jumped quite a bit. Any info on that? Thank you.
Sure, so per the collective bargaining agreement during the last contract, a 2% stipend was offered to, or was given to the sworn members of the department to carry the EpiPen or the Narcan. So that was the $64,000 increase in that one line item there. Everything else has been consistent over the past, in the past with our regular stipends for the armor and our detectives, et cetera, et cetera. So that was the explanation for the increase, and that was per the contract.
Does that stipend just last the contract, or is that's baked in forever for now?
Forever.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Unless, of course, it gets negotiated out for whatever reason.
There's that.
I have
That's
no
not
further-
gonna happen.
Good, yeah, good luck on that one, yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry, one other item. Training and development went down. And I'm just curious about that. I know with police, all the things you guys have to know to do, never, I would think training would go up since there's so many things on your plate.
All right, let me just look at this real quick.
So as the chief looks
68
it
to
up, I
about
can tell you
55.
that part of his training and development request from me, from his request was, I think initially, Chief, you had asked for 3 or 4 new personnel, and I was able to reduce that down. So each time we hire a police officer, it's what, $5,000 to $10,000?
It's $5,100 for the academy, yes. So
Yeah.
with the reduction in the officers that were approved this year, that did lower the training number a little bit, yes. That's, could explain that.
Thank you. I appreciate your time.
I had Josette second.
Just a quick question, retirements. What do you have coming this year going forward into next year?
So we have Sergeant Dolan, who's anticipating his retirement in April of 2023. We anticipated him going, so we had allocated an officer to be hired in May. I'm sorry, yeah, April of this fiscal year. So we have one officer budgeted to come online after he retires out. Officer Wilmot had just retired, and we were able to fill his spot and get them into the academy just this past month in early February. So we're ahead of the game on him as well. In terms of other retirements, everybody else is within, I would say, 5 years or so from their max date. So it's, unless someone decides they want to go early, which we haven't had a real indication just yet, we should be good to go for a little while. But again, like I said, we've sometimes the unforeseen happens and people come and go. So we're in a good spot with our active hiring list. So we are prepared to bring people on quickly if we need to. And we've been successful in that so far in the recent past. So long-winded answer, 2 are going that we know. 1 went, 1's going soon, and we're not sure about anybody else in the very near future.
Thank you. I release my hold.
Okay. I missed who was third on the list. Was that Doug?
Might have been me.
Yeah, okay.
But
Yeah.
I have 2 questions. The first one is about education incentives, specifically for the administration. I guess I see one for Deputy Chief Kelleher, who's obviously now the chief, but then I also see an education incentive for the chief. And I'm not sure what the difference between these 2 are. One specific to the educational, the bachelor's degree. One doesn't, the chief one doesn't have much detail behind it. So I'm wondering what the difference between the 2 incentives are.
Well, that would be the one that was for the deputy chief that has my name on it was from when I was the deputy.
Okay.
The second one was budgeted for the next deputy chief who was yet to be selected. Okay. So that's why it's still there.
Okay. And then my second question had to do with the Fair Labor Standards Act. I guess I noticed that it was a new expense, or at least, within this 5-year window, it looked like it was a new expense in FY22. But when looking at the fire department, I see that they have it from FY99 through 23. So I wasn't sure why this is a new expense for the police department.
That's a great question, and I might have to do a little bit of research on that, to be perfectly honest with you. I know there was something we had to correct within the past several years, and I think that's why we are doing that now.
Okay.
I'm sorry, I don't have a detailed answer for you on that in particular, but I believe from what I recall is before I came into the administration, there was something that needed to be corrected per our schedule, and that's the reason why that's there more recently.
Okay.
But I can get you a more detailed answer and get that to you.
I'd appreciate that. Thank you.
Mark.
That's all for me.
Yep. Mark?
I have just a question on the crossing guards, the increase there, about 7K, about 15% increase.
So we had requested to add 1 crossing guard to our list now. That would bring us to 9 total. And we would like to put in a new crossing guard at High Plain and Washington Street. That's a busy intersection with some kids crossing the street there, and also anticipation of the new middle school project. We'd like to add 1 more crossing guard there. So that would explain the increase. Their number is about $6,100 per for their salary for the year. So that would explain where that came from.
Okay, thank you. I'm all set, Mark.
Alrighty. Jeff?
It was the 60,000 stipend that was answered. Thank you.
Okay. Jeff?
Did you hear me?
Yep, you're up. Go ahead.
Yeah, my question was on the $60,000 stipend.
Oh, okay.
It was answered.
Okay, you're all set. Ally?
Thank you, Mark. I just had a quick question. I noticed on the sick time, I think it's line 5131, it was went from 0 and then to 21,000.
That's when Sergeant Dolan retires in April, he's paid out his sick time. So that $21,000 would be to pay him for him when he retires.
All right, thank you.
You're welcome.
Other questions for police? There being none, I'm going to take one item out of order. We're going to go to Animal Control Officer, which falls under the purview of the police chief. Any questions on Animal Control Officer?
Yep, hold.
Old.
I'm going to jump to that one right now. So if you're holding, I got Jeff and Brian. Yep.
And
Jeff, you're first?
Ally as well,
And Ally
please.
too? Okay. Jeff, you're first up.
Hold on, I gotta flip my pages.
Okay.
Why Jeff pulls that up, I'm sure it's because of the spike in the cost to Norwood. You may recall, and I'll let the chief jump in after this, we joined with Norwood on a regional ACO position. And as I said last year, we were getting a real bargain with John Splain and Henry splitting the position. You can see that in FY19 in total, we spent about $60,000, 61,000 in salaries alone, and 21 about 40,000 because John retired. So with this agreement we have with Norwood, they have 3 current people, full-timers over there. They've taken all the health insurance, OPEB liability, vacation, everything that comes with it. We basically just pay them a fee. I think it's each quarter now. We changed it from monthly to quarterly, I think. And we went into this knowing we were getting a deal with John. And honestly, it's a job that's one of those thankless jobs, the 24/7, 365. They're tough to find people. They actually, Norwood had someone who, I don't even know if he lasted 6 months on the job there. So that's probably why I got some holds there. But the agreement is the agreement. They actually wanted 165. I was able to get it down to 125, but it was just more or less, we're trying to get another town on with us. Westwood has shown some interest. I think 1 or 2 of the smaller towns has shown some interest, but it hasn't materialized yet. So Chief, do you have anything to add on that one?
No, not in addition to what you had said. I mean, I know that the cost is what the cost is, but we were having a difficult time hiring someone to do that job. And for the amount of money that John was making, nobody was coming close to that. And to get someone that was available as much as John was, we needed somebody desperately, because by law, we need to, according to the general law, chapter 140, section 151, we're required to have an animal control officer. So it wasn't an option to really go without. So when this opportunity came up, it seemed to make sense to have somebody. Now we have three rotating animal control officers that are on call 24 hours a day, 7 days a week to respond. And we're in a better place now with it now that John had left us. So that's the only thing I had to add to that.
Jeff, you were first up on the hold.
Yeah, I mean, it's all along these lines, but it seems like this intermunicipal agreement's just not kind of panning out the way we expected. $125,000, that's more than we're paying our IT director for an animal control officer. So I just think maybe we need to reconsider bringing it back in-house.
Brian?
Through you, Mark, similar to Jeff, I have the same sentiments. I thought, and I understood this when it was brought to us, that it was going to be a savings, and it doesn't seem like it's going that way. I did do some research. Natick has 36,000 residents. They pay 63,000 for an animal control officer. Westwood pays 74,000 for one. Foxborough's at 55,000. And the Foxborough person gets roughly 270 calls. So I'm not sure how many calls our ACO does, but I can't support this line item. Thank you.
Jim, how long is our agreement with Norwood tied to? Is it a multi-year agreement or is it
Year to year?
Year to year? Okay.
Yeah.
I can get you exact call numbers, but we are one of the busier towns out of that group. I know Norwood's a little bigger than we are, but we call them quite frequently. So, but I can get you a number on that. I can run it through and get you that.
And I could tell you it's about $25,000 for health insurance that we'd probably be spending, plus the other liabilities.
Mhm.
Are they mostly nuisance calls or are they the inspectional calls too? New animal permits, things like that.
Anything that comes through us is a nuisance call. animals that have been killed on the roadway, things of that nature, which, barking dogs. We had them handle a dangerous dog hearing for us this year, which was quite a significant amount of time. And it was really uncharted waters for me as a new chief. So I was grateful to have Henry, who's experienced ACO, on board to handle that for us. So, and he did a great job for us. So, I mean, yeah, a lot of it's nuisance stuff, but sometimes big stuff like that comes up. We had a dog that was causing a lot of problems for us in town and it was harming some residents. So they would, through their authority, they were able to step up and really help us out with that. So yeah, it's a mixture of both, but
maybe when you do your analysis, if you can break out the calls between wild and domestic and just roadkill type related issues, because I think a big concern would be if there's an increase in the wild, because that's something that makes it a lot tougher on a community to address without a specialist.
They have to all be certified and get the state training and to serve as an ACO. I can tell you, I'm not pleased with it. I don't love it. That's one of the reasons I negotiated from the 165 to the 125. The problem is no one wants the job. I'll be straight up with you. We went through 2 other people before John. They didn't last very long. We advertised a position. We got nobody who was qualified put in for it. I agree with Brian, everything you're saying there, but a lot of these towns, they hold on to these people because the people stay, they are comfortable in the situation, and no one's really going into the field. So that's why Norwood couldn't hold on to one of the ACOs for more than 6 months. So
okay. Alrighty. Ally.
Thank you, Mark. Jim, I appreciate that you got the cost down, because 165 certainly just seems way too high. So I'm hearing that there's certain training, and I can understand that this is not a job that is easy to fill. I mean, it is a larger expense, and I'm hopefully that other towns will sign on and maybe split those costs a little further. But I release my hold.
Any other questions for animal control? Thank you, Chief.
Mark, can we vote on the budget separately?
Sure. Okay. Let's
Mark,
vote.
before we move on to fire, I got Rick was texting me. Did you guys approve the Parks Department budget? I know you voted on DPW. I'd like to release the DPW guys if we're all set.
Oh, we skipped over parks. We did not get the parks. Okay, let's vote police and animal control, then we'll come back to DPW parks. That was
Hey, Mark.
Yes.
It's Kathleen. I'd raised my hand. I just had a question for Jim, and you sort of started to answer it, but through you, Mark, to Jim, or to whomever you want to send it to.
Yep.
Is there a way to easily quantify what a salary relates to? You said about 20% would be benefits. So we'd have to, that would be $100,000 salary, we're thinking, or less than that.
Probably when you factor in OPEB liability, the benefits, vacation, yeah, probably close to it. I would, yeah, I'd say I'd be comfortable with that number.
Thank you.
Okay, let's vote police department. Do I have a motion on police?
Make a motion.
Okay, Larry.
Second.
Seconded by Brian, as noted in our books. Alrighty. All in favor, Josette?
Yes.
Ally?
Yes.
Brian?
Yes.
Steve?
Yes.
Susan?
Yes.
Jeff?
Yes.
Kathleen?
Yes.
Jean?
Yes.
Doug?
Yes.
Mark?
Yes.
Lisa?
Yes.
Larry?
Yes. Yes.
And myself. Police favorable action 1300. Okay, animal control officer. I'll entertain a motion on animal control.
Favorable action, $130,875.
Okay, that's Josette. Do I have a second?
Second.
Ally, okay,
Mark, can I ask a question before we vote?
sure.
So my question is, if we vote no, what happens?
Jim, I mean, we have a contractual
You tell
obligation.
me.
Yeah, yeah, it basically, it's a contractual obligation. So if you vote no, we're basically telling Norwood that we don't want to be part of their group anymore, I would think.
Yeah, so,
And then
Can we-
then it would be on us to find a way to meet that obligation to comply with the state requirement.
Mark, isn't our vote, we're just making a recommendation to town meeting. We're not saying break the contract or whatever. We're just voting to say, we support that, or
Right.
we don't support that. We're just
Yeah.
making recommendations.
Right, I
Yeah.
understand.
but the
Okay,
problem is with that, Larry,
Yeah.
so if you guys don't support this line, it's your budget that you present to town meeting, so you have to tell me what you want to do. You tell us where to put the money or what to do with this line.
Yeah.
I got a question. So
Yeah.
we're paying for 3 ACOs that are 24/7 support. We never had that with John.
We did,
What do we
Yeah.
need?
we had 24/7 support with John.
Well, I recall the chief at one point saying that, middle of the night, his officers would normally handle, a deer that got hit or something like that.
Mhm.
That may have happened at some point in the past, but I know John has always been available 24/7, which is why when he decided he was no longer gonna do this, it became a difficult spot for the town, because he really was around all the time. But yeah, there've been times when we deal with the deer overnight and things like that, but John would come out and moment's notice if we called him, if he was available, which was all the time.
and just a follow-up question. So if we were to hire someone full-time, I mean, are there then costs, like, do we have to support a kennel? Do we have to support, disposal costs of the animals? I
So
guess
if
I
you
don't,
guys wanted to do something like that, I'd probably tell you, I honestly don't know what we'd have to pay. We couldn't attract someone at the salaries, what it was on the salary schedule, so we'd have to bump that up. And then I have to put some money in the health insurance, like I said, 25,000 in there. And a little bit more into expenses. I'm just looking at it, so I'd have to reappropriate some of this money into other areas, I guess. And I'd also have to go to the select board and say, what do you want to do? You're the ones who signed this intermunicipal agreement. So it complicates things, certainly.
yeah, but would Walpole have to get it like its own kennel? We'd have to pay for disposal of animals. In other words, I'm
No,
just
we
trying
have
to
our
think
own,
of-
we have our own kennel.
Oh, we
For the
do.
most part, they've been using the Norwood kennel just because it's a little bit bigger, but we do have our own kennel and it's still up, functional.
Okay.
Is there a
Thank you.
vehicle that would have to be brought back on?
We kept our vehicle, so it's on its last leg, but we still have a vehicle. And I'd get it through capital if we needed to.
All right, so animal control, we have a motion for favorable action. All in favor? Josette,
No,
Ally,
Yes.
Brian,
No,
Steve,
Yes.
Susan,
Yes.
Jeff,
No,
Kathleen,
Yes.
Jean,
Yes.
Doug,
No.
Mark,
Yes.
Lisa,
Yes.
Larry,
No,
myself is a no. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We have 6 no's. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 yeses. Motion carries 7-6 for favorable action on animal control. Let's jump back to
Parks
DPW
Division.
Parks.
That's tab 9, page 58 in the big book.
Yes. Any questions on DPW Parks? The one item that jumped out to me, Jim, was the big jump in water. Last year's budget was a $20,000 increase. This year is a $31,000 increase for water on parks. Does that include sports fields or no?
Yes, it does, and it's most significantly at the new fields up the street.
Okay. Any other questions on parks? There being none, I'll entertain a motion for DPW parks.
Favorable action for the Parks Division in the amount of $944,880.
Second. And seconded by Susan. Okay. All in favor, Josette,
Yes,
Ally,
Yes.
Brian,
Yes.
Steve,
Yes.
Susan,
Yes.
Jeff,
Yes.
Kathleen,
Yes,
Dean,
Yes.
Doug,
Yes.
Mark,
Yes.
Lisa,
Yes.
Larry,
Yes.
and myself is a yes. Favorable action on parks 1300.
hey, Mark, can I ask a
Yes.
question? I couldn't
Sure.
unmute myself fast enough before the vote, but I'm just wondering, I know that we do get some revenue out of the fields on 1A.
Jim, does that
goes-
revenue go to the recreation department as a revolver account?
Yeah, that would go into the recreation revolving account. I don't believe they've had activities down there, but no major. It's been to in-town groups. So, but yes.
And,
I
and-
was interested because I saw a soccer showcase for college applicants and it was going to be held there. So I was surprised we were getting, that seemed pretty big. So I'm just wondering if there's a way to, the people that didn't want it to begin with are going to look at that and say, look at what it's costing us. It would be nice to know how much of that is offset by income coming in. So
It's a good idea. I could check with, as we get up closer to town meeting, I'll definitely have that printout and ready to go. Maybe I might even address it in a cover letter or something. Just, we've collected, it's up and running.
That's
Yeah,
great.
'cause
Thank you.
the rec department collects user fees for all the fields when programs are running, right? And obviously it goes to cover part of their staff that are running these programs, but doesn't also some of that go back into the field maintenance? Do they actually contribute from the revolver to the field maintenance?
There is some contribution. Pat, do you remember in your time as?
Yeah, they've changed the fee structure since the new fields have come online, but essentially it was about 25% of, so yeah, they collect fees, it goes into a revolving account. Part of that has gone toward the Turco field replacement, so about 25% of the fees used to go to the Turco field replacement. I'm pretty sure that the way that Brendan's got it structured now will start to go toward the eventual replacement of the synthetic turf of the new field complex. But every time there's a field use, there's a field permit that goes right into that field maintenance account that Justin uses.
Okay. Alrighty.
Mark,
Okay.
before you move on, what was the parks approval? Was that 13-0? Was there any?
1300. Yep.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Fire department. Who's our first hold?
Hold.
I saw Brian first. Who's second?
Yeah.
Jeff?
Larry.
Larry, okay.
Ally?
Hang on. Okay, Ally's fourth, Larry's third. Jeff. Second, Brian was first. Okay, Brian, you're up.
Through you, Mark, just a question on the overtime training, if that was just being moved from a previous spot to where it currently is, Chief?
Yes, so by contract that they get 48 hours of training and 24 of it is mandatory. And we've never really put up it in that line specifically. We've always just taken it out of the overtime. So we did make a transfer over so that it's more definitive for that training. So that's what that is.
Okay, great. Next question, the professional and technical. Can you give examples of what type of training or I think it mentioned something about speakers, experts coming in?
Yes, that's so that we can bring in subject matter experts to do training with our personnel here. We did it last year with the tower ladder. We brought in PL Vulcan, who's they are firefighters. That's what they do. They go around and train. but there is a cost associated with it. So that is so that we can bring that group in again to do a different scenario with different type of training.
Okay, great. And then things still working out pretty well with the East Walpole Station being open, helping alleviate things is still a good decision for us.
Yes, it's been a very good decision. That station has actually done more runs than Uptown. They're almost 50-50, but that one has a little bit of an edge on the runs because of its response district. As you had mentioned earlier when you were talking with Dawn, we're making some modifications down there. We hired some, our workforce has been diversifying, and we're making it so that it's habitable for everyone. So but there's some minor adjustments that are being made down there as we speak.
Excellent. Thank you. I appreciate it. I release the hold.
Okay, Jeff, you're next.
Overtime training, I had the same question. Release my hold.
Okay, Larry?
On the professional firefighters, I'm looking at going back to 2.3 million, about 340. Now we're at 3138. That's almost 800,000 up and 34% increase over that time. I take it what I guess I'm looking for head count. What were we in 19 and what are we now to?
So where we will be now is at 44. Is what the goal is. 44 plus the deputy, myself, and our fire prevention officer to get us to 47.
And what were we back in 19? I take it we were 40 or 30, or 38. I mean, 800 grand is a pretty big jump.
It was lower. I want to say it was 40, but I can get that for you, Larry.
Okay.
The chief's right, Larry. I remember I looked back through my notes last year, and I always like to break out the groups in my budget message, and I didn't last year. So I physically went through and counted. So since from last year to this year, we've actually added 3 people. We've done that a little bit through one last year. We talked about getting that chief, is it the SAFER grant, the grant where we went for 8 firefighters? So we didn't get it. We weren't successful, but
that is correct.
And we we put some extra money in the overtime budget, knowing that we were going to hire someone. So we played a numbers game a little bit. We weren't successful there, but at town meeting in the fall, we went in and put a few $100,000 into that account. One, to outfit the 2 new engines, but also to fully staff East Walpole for the remainder of the year. So I know a year ago, we were only budgeted for 41, but I can go back really easily with the chief and just look at and see what our staffing was. I know when we were building the station, chief, didn't we only have about 9 people on per shift, 8 or 9 per shift, depending on what you.
When we were building the station, we were at 9 going to 10, correct? And our minimum was 8.
Yeah.
Our shift minimum currently is at 9, and that is because of the opening of Station 2.
And come this summer, I think we will have been in the new station 3 years, right?
Almost, yes.
Yeah.
Doesn't
So
seem.
it's gone by fast, Josette. So in that time, Larry, yeah, we have increased the staffing. One of the goals of the select board is to work with the chief and to increase it. I know the chiefs had expressed a desire to get even more in there, and the board's been really supportive of it. So that's one of the reasons we've been trying to build it up each year.
2 questions. Is it a contractual obligation to have a certain minimum head count? And what's the ultimate goal? What I mean, have we met your goal, or is there still, would you like to have, more than 10, 12 guys a shift?
Ultimately, I'd like to have at a minimum 13 on a shift and run at 11. The minimum manning is set by the board through discussion with the board, and then ultimately that's where we end up.
So chief, the current contract, does it say 8 or 9? I forget.
It's 8.
So
it's
the 8 specified in the contract, Larry.
8 is specified in the contract, and we had an agreement with the board to increase that by 1 with Station 2 opening.
One other question on the stipends slash ambulance EMT. That's gone up from 19 from about 220 grand up to 376. My math says about 156 grand, 71%. Can you explain to me what the stipends are for and why such a jump?
So the paramedics all get a stipend, and it's based on where they're at in the steps. It's based on their base. So And with the new personnel coming on, they also get it. So our stipends all the way across the board, you've seen adjustments in different numbers, and that is why, because of the added staffing.
And
You
just to
require-
follow up on that, from what I recall, the firefighters also negotiated, I believe it was a 2%, chief, does that sound about right?
That is
for the
correct.
EMT paramedic stipend, so, and that was the
Correct.
last contract, we're entering year 3 of that contract, so, I see what you're looking at, Larry, as it's grown over so that's in addition to contractual obligations and added personnel.
I mean,
and some of-
71 cents a lot. I
Yeah,
mean,
and
but
also, Larry, some of the staff was grandfathered, so they did not have to become paramedics. But all new hires are required to be paramedics, so they're getting that higher stipend. And we've had to now budget for 100% of the staff being paramedics, as opposed to previously, people who were grandfathered did not have to become paramedics. They could stay as EMTs. And the difference in the stipends is also adding to that jump.
great. That was my question. So everyone, new hires all have to be paramedics?
Yes, within 2 years of their hire, we try to hire them in the door as paramedics. It's better for us operationally.
Is it a civil service program still, or is it outside that?
It is not a civil service program. My deputy actually just got back to me on 19. We had 36 firefighters plus the chief and the deputy.
Okay, great. Thank you. I release my hold.
Ally?
Hi, thank you, Mark. Some of my questions were already answered. One thing it made me think about was gas and fuel went down. How are we doing with Nord closing? I would think that line would go up as we're still going to facilities like hospitals that are further away.
Yeah, I mean, that's not going to change anytime soon.
And then one other question, I know the SAFER grant, we weren't eligible, we didn't receive. Are we going to be applying for that again this year?
So we have applied for, this time we've applied for 4 personnel, and we're waiting to hear. That went in 2 weeks ago.
All right, thank you. I release my hold.
Okay. Any other questions on fire? Yes, Josette.
I have a quick question, Tim. Are you aware of any retirements coming up immediately
No.
within the next year?
No, I'm not aware of any. There are several of us that could go, but I'm not aware of anyone that is, no one has indicated to me that they are going to be going.
Great, thank you.
Right. There being no other questions, I'll entertain a motion on fire.
Make a motion to approve.
Second.
Jeff and Brian, okay. Note. Brian, second. All in favor of the fire department budget as noted in our book, say aye. Josette,
Yes,
Ally,
Yes.
Brian,
Yes.
Steve,
Yes.
Susan,
Yes.
Jeff,
Yes.
Kathleen,
Yes.
Jean,
Yes.
Doug,
Yes.
Mark,
Yes.
Lisa.
Yes.
Larry,
Yes.
and myself. Favorable action on fire 1300. Okay. That brings us to inspection services.
Hold.
Okay.
Doug.
Let's see, weights and measures. No hold on weights and measures. Emergency management. Okay. Inspection services, who had the hold?
Doug had one of them.
Okay.
So-
Mike, go ahead.
Go ahead, Doug, sorry.
My question had to do with the deputy electrical inspectors. I see we have 2 local inspectors that are each budgeted for about 200 hours each. And I guess when I did the math, that kind of equated to about 50 days of coverage when the full-time inspector isn't available. And I guess I was just wondering if there's really that much of a demand that requires that kind of additional coverage.
Yes, so
So, hey, Jim, can I introduce you first? They haven't met you. So I was going to interrupt you at first, Doug, and just say, this is Jim Crowley. Jim's been with us for two plus years. Mike is resigned. He actually has gone off into private industry, but he's still around every once in a while helping us out when necessary. So with that, I'll kind of hand off to Jim. Sorry, guys.
No
Welcome,
problem.
Jim.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yes, our inspectional services, we do have Brian O'Leary, who's our main inspector. He works a 20-hour week plus call outs. And then we do have 2 reserves. And at the moment, we are being called out a lot as for overtime as well on those we've had a lot of storms over the last year. And we're also going to be getting extra call outs for the 1A project for after hours inspections.
So on those after hours inspections, just to piggyback on what Jim said, is we get an additional fee for that one, for those large scale scheduled inspections. Are they about 200 or 250, Jim?
250 an inspection.
Okay.
Just to give you an idea on electrical, the difference from last year to this year on call outs, we had 782 electrical inspections last year. And up to date this year, we've had 1,371. So we virtually doubled on electrical inspections.
All right, I'm sold. I release the hold.
Okay. Brian.
Through you, Mark. Jim, couple questions. I see an increase in training and development and just curious what that is.
So we do the online system, Viewpoint. We do training to update that system because we're trying to get it across the board in town with other departments. And also the training cycle for inspectors was put on hold last year because of COVID. And this year we're going ahead with it. Each inspector has to do so many hours inspections or training, but also the code cycle is actually changing. So that will include training for the new code cycle plus buying all the new code books and reviews for because we're going to be going from 2015. The state's going to jump us to either 221 or 223 this year.
Okay, and one more question. Professional services, web hosting, what is that?
That's our Viewpoint system that we use for online permitting. So we've basically gone 100% online. So all permitting goes through our online system. And that increased this year just from the amount of records. You pay per record you've created. And as you obviously can tell, we've had a lot of new buildings coming, new projects going in Walpole. So that's why the increase.
With that increase in that line using the Viewpoint, has the inspection fees increased to match what the increase is?
Yes, so we changed actually when I landed here 3 years ago with the previous editor, Mike Yanovich, and we rewrote the fee schedule to match it. So again, just to give you an idea of our turnover, 21, we had 2,900 permits. Last year, we're at 4,465. So the online system's working very well, creating a lot more records. And because it's so much more fluid, more people are actually applying for permits online.
Perfect, thanks. Try to get it 6,000 next year. Thank you.
Okay, Larry.
But correct me if I'm wrong, Jim, or Jim Crowley, or Jim Johnson. Basically, the fees you folks bring in, basically, I would think is a profit center of sorts. It pays for you folks, I would guess. Is that accurate?
Yeah, I believe we budgeted and permits for the next fiscal year. Jody, was it $1.1 million? That's not
Yes.
just for buildings, but most of it comes from the building inspections.
I mean, that's the money. I mean, budget's $500,000. You're bringing in 1 point something. I wish everybody could work that way, but I understand. Thank you.
Other questions for inspectional services? Okay. There being none, we'll take the 3 remaining budgets together. Inspectional services, weights and measures, and emergency management. Do I have a motion as noted?
Make a motion as noted.
Brian, okay. Do I have a second?
Second,
by
Doug.
Doug. Got it. All in favor, Josette,
Yes.
Ally,
Yes.
Brian,
Yes.
Steve,
Yes.
Susan,
Yes.
Jeff,
I abstain on the inspectional services, but yes on weights and measures. and
Okay.
emergency Management.
okay, I'll note that, abstain on inspection. Okay, Kathleen,
Yes.
Jean,
Yes.
Doug,
Yes.
Mark,
Yes.
Lisa,
Yes.
Larry,
Yes.
myself is a yes. Okay, favorable action 1300, except for inspectional services, which is 1201. That concludes our budgets for tonight. Did people get a chance to look at the minutes that were distributed Tuesday morning?
Yes.
Okay,
Mark, I sent you a minor edit on one of them. That was it. That was good.
okay. Alrighty, so we'll tackle the minutes. Jim, do you have anything you want to address before we turn you loose?
No, just that I sent out a memo and it was more or less meant for when we start discussing the articles. I know a couple of you had asked about what's the articles, what does it look like? So I wanted to give you kind of a broad overview of them. Landis and I are still hammering out the language in the stormwater. It's just more or less technical and make sure that we're in compliance with the regulations. But I anticipate that the select board will probably review and sign it at their first meeting in March. It'll be ready to go by then, but just more or less a broad overview. I addressed some of the questions that came up at the last meeting. So I'm sure there'll be a lot of questions once we get into it after the school budget. So.
Jim, Jim did inform me that the school department has put together their booklets for us, so they can pick them up at town hall starting tomorrow, Jim?
Yes, and if you need us to run them over to you at all, I'm sure Patrick and I could figure it out with the superintendent and Mike Fisher or something. Just let us know, or they're available, during our hours or operations. I know the school department during February vacation, a lot of people are taking some time off, so if you could just let us know ahead of time, we'll make sure we get it to you.
The
Those in your-
superintendent's assistant sent out an email saying they were uptown. I picked up my package today, so they're up.
Okay, Jim, are they?
Yeah, I was able to get mine as well.
Yeah, Jim, are they at your office or the school department?
They're upstairs in the school department.
Okay,
In the business office for the school department.
gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay. Good enough. Thank you, Jim.
No
Okay.
problem.
On to our minutes.
Hey, Mark,
Yes,
Jeff, can I suggest that we hold off on voting on the minutes? I still haven't finished the review. It's just way too much.
okay. We'll add this to our agenda for Monday, the 28th, when we'll be.
Everybody
back
else
to-
agrees.
Is everybody satisfied that we'll defer until the 28th for minutes?
Got
I
no
see a couple
issues.
thumbs up. Okay, I just want to make sure everybody's comfortable. I see a bunch of thumbs up happening, so, right, so we'll entertain a motion to adjourn in just a moment. The minutes will become part of our February 28th meeting, which will be hybrid. If you need the link, let Jim know sooner rather than later, so he can make sure the hybrid link is set up for you. Otherwise, we'll see you in person on the 28th. Entertain a motion to adjourn
So moved.
by Josette. Do I have a second?
Second.
Susan? Okay, all in favor of adjourning? Josette,
Yes.
Ally,
Yes.
Brian,
Yes.
Steve,
Yes.
Susan,
Yes.
Jeff,
Yes.
Kathleen,
Yes.
Jean,
Yes.
Doug,
Yes.
Mark,
Yes.
Lisa,
Yes.
Larry,
Yes.
and myself. 1300. We stand adjourned until the 28th. Enjoy your holiday weekend, folks. See you in a week and a half. Thank you.